We're looking at potentially going from 7 days a year with a heat index of 105 here in Miami-Dade to close to 3 months a year by mid-century.
Miami is the 44th most populous city in the U.S. and a global tourist magnet for its beautiful beaches, culture, and nightlife. But the city has obvious vulnerabilities, like its exposure to hurricanes.
Dangerous major hurricane.
The biggest threat is the storm surge.
As well as some other concerns that are gaining precedence, such as the effects of heat and sea level rise.
You can watch a hurricane advance on your community on your iPhone. You really can't see the rise of the sea, but you know it's happening, and you know that in the future it's going to accelerate.
We're having increasing temperatures, both due to climate change and to urban development patterns.
Sea level rise itself makes specific actions like storm surge from a hurricane or high tides much worse each year.
The official statistics on heat-related mortalities are very low. The EPA reports a little over 700 annually. However, through many different research studies on what they look at as excess deaths during times of extreme heat, the predictions are much higher. And nationwide, we're looking at over 8,000 to over 12,000 a year. This is the #1 killer of any weather-related disaster, more than floods, hurricanes, more than fires, tornadoes. Populations that are more vulnerable to heat can be young children, older adults, pregnant women. They're more sensitive to the temperatures. People with pre-existing conditions like heart and lung conditions or on certain medications. There are also populations that are just more exposed to heat, and those could be outdoor workers, people who are what we call air conditioning insecure. And then additionally, those that are unhoused, the homeless population, are more exposed.
Miami's problems, of course, are not exclusive, and cities everywhere are starting to take action.
Our region, unfortunately, reported more than 300 people who died from heat exposure last summer, so we are not meeting that livability expectation for everyone.
We're working on reducing heat through cooler pavements, more pervious surfaces, and maintaining and enhancing our tree canopy. On managing heat, we're working on training disaster volunteers and emergency medical technicians and healthcare practitioners just to better understand what are the signs of heat-related illnesses, how do we respond. We're also working on a public education campaign.
But the trees that go in the ground this year are going to be 5 to 6 feet tall. We have to be looking 5 to 10 years down the road before those trees are providing meaningful shade to people on the sidewalks, which is why we also need to be thinking about other strategies like reflective surfaces and things we can do to keep people safe this summer, like having cooling centers.
We have large public services that we're responsible for: the airport, the seaport, the transportation system, supplying drinking water. So these facilities are relied upon by our citizens, by our visitors, by industries here to be operational all the time, on demand.
A new crisis emerging in Texas.
We saw that a real tragedy a couple winters ago in Texas with the winter storm. And if something like that were to happen in a large American city in the summer, particularly in the Sun Belt where it's already very hot, and we take away that critical lifeline of air conditioning, the public health effects could be quite serious.
Air conditioning is the #1 user of energy in your home, and that cost is getting cost prohibitive for certain populations. Another area that we're working on is increasing funding and financing assistance to lower income homeowners and renters.
Whether we're thinking about how much energy people can save on their air conditioning bill, when we add that up across a region with 4.5 million people, that's a lot of potential savings. When we're thinking about avoided emergency department visits, overnight hospitalizations, or even heat-associated deaths in some cases, the return on investment that's possible can be in the billions with a B.
Even with promising returns, hefty price tags for infrastructure for any municipality can be prohibitive. The cost of inaction, however, is becoming more obvious with each emerging crisis.
You're rolling the dice. If we don't prepare, then you've got to try to recover short and long term for that. And while you're doing that, your economy's going to be battered.
Climate modeling studies suggest that with significant action, we could wind up with a Phoenix of the future that's cooler than the Phoenix we have today, even as global warming continues, if we have widespread deployment of some of those cooling technologies.
We feel pretty good about our approach, and we're really focused on implementation, on projects that provide greater protection to our citizens based on science.
I'm definitely optimistic for the outlook of Miami-Dade County. It has shown itself time and time again through history to be incredibly resilient to big shocks and come back stronger every single time.